Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a stack of state financial documents and some pretty dense operational reports.
Right.
And we're performing a really focused extraction for you. We are pulling back the curtain on one of the largest and I think least understood state-run enterprises. We're talking about the financial engine of a major state correctional system.
And specifically, we are looking at the Alabama Department of Corrections, the ADOC.
The ADOC, right?
Our sources, they cover fiscal years 2021 all the way through 2024, so we've got a pretty good window here.
Okay, so it's recent data.
Very recent. And it gives us this rare look, really, into the inner workings. You get to see what programs are actually generating revenue.
And which ones are just bleeding money.
Exactly. What is draining resources? And crucially, what the state seems to be failing to do to manage what is, well, a systemic crisis.
And that's what we're here for, to cut through the noise and figure out what these numbers truly tell us about that dual mission of prisons. Safety, sure, but also rehabilitation.
But before we get in any of that, we have to set the stage.
We do.
There's one single number that puts everything else we're about to discuss into perspective.
And that number is 174%.
174%. As of August 2025, the ADOC system is holding over 21,000 inmates.
Okay.
In facilities that were only ever designed to hold about 12,100 people. So you are operating at a staggering 174% of designed capacity.
It's just incredible number. And that acute critical overcrowding is the intense backdrop against which every single dollar we talk about today is spent. Every program is judged against that reality.
It hangs over everything.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before we get into some of the massive liabilities we found, let's start with the one model that is, it's absolutely a success story, financially and logistically.
You're talking about the work release program.
Exactly.
What's so fascinating here is that work release represents a proven, successful alternative. Instead of institutional labor, it allows eligible inmates to hold real-world jobs.
Right, out in the community.
Out in the community. They're earning gross salaries, they're paying taxes, and they're preparing for a successful transition. This is the reentry model actually working.
And the numbers, the dollars here are just enormous. Through August 2024, and that's the latest data we have, the participants in these programs earned a collective gross salary of over $28.1 million.
$28 million. That's incredible economic activity.
It is.
And here's the key insight for the department, for the state's budget. Of that $28.1 million earned by inmates, a crucial $11.2 million was paid directly back to ADOC.
Wow. So where does that money come from?
It comes in the form of fees for housing, for food, other costs associated with their incarceration while they're in the program.
So just to be clear, you have a mechanism that is taking inmates out of those overcrowded main facilities.
Right. It's reducing the daily strain on the system.
And it's generating 8-figure revenue for the department.
Yes. As of September 2024, it had, 4,460 participants?
So if that program is generating over $11 million, what's the barrier to, doubling its capacity? It seems like a no-brainer.
Well, that raises a really important question about strategy. The department's own analysis explicitly identifies work release as the single most viable strategy for this, for generating funds while mitigating overcrowding.
So they know this.
They know. The barriers are usually things like capacity in the work release centers themselves, and sometimes, the political will to move inmates into these less restrictive settings. But the financial argument is undeniable.
It is, and that sets a very, very high bar for the state's own internal operations, which I think brings us to the other side of the coin. Let's transition from that success story to the major operational headache. The state's own manufacturing arm, Alabama Correctional Industries, ACI.
Right, and ACI's mission, it sounds great on paper, provide vocational work training for inmates. Exactly. While producing necessary goods for state agencies, office furniture, clothing, and of course the famous license plates, it's designed to be a self-sustaining industrial revolving fund.
Self-sustaining. But the bottom line for fiscal year 2024 tells a pretty grim story.
It does.
ACI reported total expenses of nearly $13.1 million against only $12.3 million in revenue.
So that results in a net loss of just under $790,000 for the year.
So this internal system, which was designed to save the state money and prepare inmates for jobs, instead cost taxpayers almost $800,000 last year.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture,
ACI is operating as a liability that has to be subsidized by taxpayers.
Well, work release is generating pure profit.
Pure profit. But to be fair, the story within ACI is a bit mixed. There were successful units that prove the model can work.
Okay, so give us those. Where does ACI actually manage to turn a profit?
Well, the clothing plants, they recorded a strong profit, nearly $480,000. The printing plant earned $440,000, and the mattress plant was up about $146,000.
So there are functioning, successful enterprises in there.
Yes, there are.
Which begs the question, if the clothing plant is so profitable, why isn't the department aggressively expanding those profitable units and shutting down the major losers? Because the report shows the majority of individual plants, like the chair plant, Draper Furniture, the modular plant, they all ended the year in the red.
That's where it looked like there's some, systemic mismanagement.
Right.
And we also hit this really strange financial anomaly that it requires attention.
Okay.
The furniture restoration unit sounds like an excellent training program, right?
Absolutely. Great skill.
It reported a massive loss of over $543,000 in FY 2024. But what's truly bizarre is that this loss was reported against negative revenue.
Negative revenue. What does that?
Yeah,
How
right.
is that possible?
Yes. Negative $227,827. It's a major, major analytical red flag. It signals huge accounting problems, or maybe massive product returns, or just an absolute breakdown of inventory control.
So it implies money is flowing out where revenue should be flowing in.
Exactly. Even before you account for a single dollar of operational expenses, it's a mess.
That's just a startling finding. It screams for an internal audit. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. We need to drill down into the two biggest financial liabilities because they both raise these serious questions about the strategic purpose of this whole thing.
All right. The largest individual loss for ACI in FY 2024 came from the vehicle tag plant.
The license plates.
The license plates. It lost a staggering $713,000
In that 1 year.
in that single year.
Which is shocking to me because ACI has a virtual monopoly on this. They make all the license plates for the state. They have guaranteed demand, zero competition. How are they losing $750,000 on this?
Well, the sources show that context for this struggle goes back a few years. If you look at FY 2021, the tag plant was hit really hard because the cost of raw materials,
like the aluminum.
specifically aluminum and
Ah.
the special feeding for the tags, those prices rose dramatically. But compounding that issue was the requirement for the 5-year issue.
Okay, clarify what the 5-year issue means for the listener.
Right, so the 5-year issue is this mandatory system-wide tag redesign cycle. Every 5 years, the state requires a complete replacement of all license plates.
For every car in Alabama.
Every single one. And this causes a massive short-term spike in production demand. It forces ACI to dramatically increase its purchasing of these high-cost raw materials, causing expenses to temporarily jump by nearly $3 million in that year alone. It's like a mandated debt spike.
So the state mandates this expensive production change, but the internal industry, which is supposed to be self-sustaining, has to absorb the full shock of that rise in costs.
That's right. The monopoly status just doesn't protect them from volatile commodity market.
It clearly doesn't.
But the next major liability, it raises an even more fundamental question, and it connects directly to the core mission of rehabilitation and job training.
And what's that?
How can an industrial operation that was designed specifically for inmate job training lose money without employing a single person?
This is the absolute core of the contradiction in this report.
It really is.
And the answer lies with the chemical plant. In fiscal year 2024, the chemical plant incurred a loss of over $191,000.
Let's just hold on to that for a second. We're looking at a system designed for rehabilitation.
Yes.
Vocational training to prepare inmates for reentry, and it is losing nearly $200,000 a year. And the output of job training for the inmate population is exactly zero.
I just want to repeat that. The sources confirm this loss was incurred despite employing 0 inmates in fiscal year 2024.
0 inmates.
0. So the stated purpose of ACI is vocational benefit, yet this unit represents a pure, unmitigated financial drain. There's no corresponding rehabilitative purpose whatsoever to offset its cost. It's a liability in every sense of the word.
Why is it even operating?
That's the question. If it serves neither a financial purpose nor a training purpose, why does it exist?
It just suggests systemic inertia. It exists to produce a product, regardless of the cost, regardless of whether it's fulfilling its actual mandate.
And when you contrast this with the $11 million generated by work release,
Where inmates are successfully placed in the community.
the gulf is it's massive. It's a massive gulf between effective program design and just, what, administrative lethargy?
I think so.
And that brings us to the bigger picture. How is ADOC investing in the programs that are actually supposed to reduce the prison population and increase the chances of successful reentry?
We've established that the financial model, work release, it works. But the industrial model, ACI, largely fails. So what about broader rehabilitative investment?
Well, the state is clearly making some massive investments in alternatives outside the prison walls. For instance, $15.7 million was sent to county programs to support the Community Corrections Program in FY 2024.
And that's vital. Diverting offenders from even entering those 174% capacity facilities is crucial.
Right. But once they are inside, the rehabilitative reach is, well, it seems limited.
Extremely limited. Educational programs are foundational, but the scale relative to the total population is just tiny.
In FY 2024, only 1,106 non-duplicated participants engaged in basic education programs. That's across the entire state system.
And that resulted in just 139 GEDs being earned. Over the entire year.
139.
You have an in-house population over 21,000. So those 139 GEDs, I mean. That represents only about 5% of the population even receiving that basic programming. It just highlights a clear resource bottleneck.
Yeah. And finally, we see specific tools that are designed to reduce operational strain and cost that are just dramatically underutilized. And this connects right back to that overcrowding crisis.
You're talking about the aging inmate population?
Exactly. ADOC has a massive and escalating challenge there.
The numbers are stark. Nearly 30% of the inmate population is over the age of 50.
And that demographic requires complex, expensive, specialized medical care. It drains resources far more than the general population.
Right, which is precisely why the medical furlough program exists. It's designed to safely release the most costly, terminally ill or permanently incapacitated inmates who pose little threat.
It's a pressure release valve, a way to free up expensive medical capacity.
And yet, in FY 2024, the department only granted 11 furloughs.
11 out of 27 applications they received.
So this system is operating at 174% capacity, and they're leaving one of their most effective pressure release valves sitting almost 60% unused.
It just feels like a massive strategic opportunity missed, a way to safely reduce the most medically complex and expensive part of the population.
It does.
So after all that, what does this all mean? We've seen this duality in the ADOC financial structure. You have the successful work release model generating millions for the state.
Over 11 million a year.
While moving people toward independence. And at the exact same time, you have this financially failing industrial system, ACI, posting an almost $800,000 net loss.
The challenge facing the department isn't just financial. It's a mission statement failure. They have to convert these industrial liabilities, like that nearly $200,000 loss, from the chemical plant that employs 0 inmates into actual training assets.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Right. The state is paying the cost of an industrial program without getting any of the rehabilitative benefit.
Which brings us to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. When we analyze these state-owned industries that are meant for rehabilitation, we have to ask, where is the line drawn on an acceptable loss?
It's a great question. If the mission is truly rehabilitation, how much should the state be willing to lose on vocational training to secure a successful reentry for someone?
And more importantly, where's the absolute line drawn when the training value is 0?
Exactly. We saw that work release generates millions. If an ACI program loses, say, $50,000, but it gives 50 inmates high-value, marketable job training, you could argue it's fulfilling its mission.
A worthy investment.
A worthy investment. But if it loses $191,000 and employs 0 inmates, it serves neither a financial purpose nor a rehabilitative one. And that is where reform efforts really must focus their immediate attention.